So power squabbles continue in the city of Johannesburg. Residents, of course, concerned about service delivery while the political infighting continues. Political parties want to take over the city at the expense of residents, it seems. Certainly that's the perception of many residents. Mayor Mpho Phalatse, she of course was ousted and recently reinstated through a court process. She has fought tooth and nail to cling to power. The ANC says it's going to table another motion of no confidence against her in the coming days, and they reckon she'll be out of office once more by the end of this month. Our reporter Moloko Moloto joins us now for more. Moloko, there's so much going on here, but basically yesterday the ANC accused Mpho Phalatse of having collapsed the finances of Johannesburg. Today she hit back. What did she say?
Well, today the executive mayor Mpho Phalatse was really saying that the ANC just wants to come back and have their hands in the cookie jar. She's saying that she has seen, since she returned after she was reinstated by the courts, that the foundations and structures of good governance that she says she put in place when Dada Morero was in office for 25 days, there were attempts to undo those. But the issue of finances, Sally, is that while the ANC says the finances of Joburg are messy, the executive mayor is saying, look, they are not in a good position, but we are not at a point where we cannot even pay salaries. However, she admits that she will need, or the municipality will need, a loan of about 2 billion rand for them to stay afloat. And for that money for the municipality or the executive to go and borrow that money from the Development Bank of Southern Africa, they require approval of council. And that's where the problem is, because a report that ought to have gone to council couldn't go there. And the executive mayor is blaming the ANC and council speaker Colleen Makubelo of blocking that particular report so that there can be a crisis, because if they continue without that particular money, their cash flow will be in trouble and it would just be chaotic. Let's listen to Mpho Phalatse.
Much was said about the finances of the city because, of course, this is where the attention of the corrupt is focused. There was little to no truth about what was said, in the main because the figures were unaudited. We have nothing to hide because the audited figures will be presented before council as per legislation. What was of concern was how nonchalant Councillor Dada Morero was about the delayed 2 billion rand short-term loan from the DBSA, the report of which was supposed to serve at the last council meeting, but was blocked and has been kicked further down the road due to the cancellation of today's extraordinary meeting of council. It shows that the ANC is willing to collapse the city in order to grab power. While finances are not in the best position, we're taking active steps to rectify this. So this notion that there is anxiety about the payment of salaries is a fabrication, and that we cannot meet our financial obligations is a lie. Notably, we're one of the few municipalities across the country that does not owe Eskom or Rand Water.
And yet they need 2 billion rand. So why is the city of Johannesburg in debt? You know, we're the city of gold. Is it because residents are not paying for the services?
A very pertinent question, Sally, because the financial year of municipalities actually started in July this year. So we are hardly 6 months into the financial year, and yet the city is going through these troubles. But you have to understand that the budget of the municipality consists of various aspects. The equitable share money that would come from the national government, and also you will have conditional grants, which the money is strictly locked onto particular projects. Then the municipality would say, make a projection to say, for this financial year, we are going to collect so much. So they have to be collecting optimally for them to stay afloat. And the ANC is saying that is the reason, because the city is not collecting optimally. But on the other hand, we heard from the executive mayor and her MMC saying that a money amounting to about 2.7 billion rand has actually disappeared from the coffers, and I suppose that is is contained in one of the reports that she says it's being blocked from being tabled in council. So
it's fascinating, because we also know that one of the big issues and the big concerns that the ANC has is what happened when Herman Mashaba was mayor. Mpho Phalatse, I think, was MMC for finance, and it related to, was it an 11 million rand contract? The public protector finding that certain processes were flouted. Just talk me through that. Is that the heart of the motion of no confidence mission against her?
So what happened, Sally, when Herman Mashaba was still the executive mayor? Mpho Phalatse was, in fact, the MMC for health. Okay. Now, what happened was that the city needed to intervene in the fight against substance abuse in Johannesburg. And they needed an NGO that would go out and educate people about the dangers and ills of substance abuse. So what they did was that there's a discretionary fund in the municipality, which the executive could actually use to enhance these programs. So the executive mayor and the members of mayoral committee, we are told, then they decided that they are going to appoint this particular company. They gave it 11 million rand, and this company was not in the database of the municipality. Ideally, they should have gone to people who have already been vetted, who are in the system. Now, the difficulty here is that this is the same company that Herman Mashaba used to chair this particular NGO. So that conflict of interest. But the trick here, Sally, is that MMCs don't have executive authority. Executive authority lies solely in the executive mayor. So even if they met in a meeting, but ultimately that decision is of the executive mayor. And Mpho Phalatse happened to have been part of it because he was MMC of health. That was more of a health project, yes. And it is the reason why these motions of no confidence are pinned on that particular case. And because it's in court, the rules of council say you cannot even debate it. That is why the court said you should not have passed a motion of no confidence on the basis of this.
So when they launch this next motion of no confidence, it won't mention that issue?
It
cannot.
It shouldn't, because if they do, then that is why yesterday there was supposed to be a second motion of no confidence. By the programming committee passed it, but they realized that actually another loophole, she will win in court, because she was even threatening court action. So they will have to find another reason, because if they repeat this one, chances are that the courts will actually
Which makes sense why they're saying she's collapsing the finances by not being able to collect the revenue. Very interesting. In the midst of all of this is the resident. And is it having a noticeable impact on service delivery? What are the people of Joburg saying to you?
Oh yes, it does, Sally. Firstly, the 2 billion rand loan that they require, if they can't get it, they may be in a very precarious situation. And that is why they are even saying they urgently want that particular loan. But for the services that the people of residence ought to receive, there's also the contract, fleet contract, meaning 4,000 vehicles that pick it up an entity of Joburg utilizes to collect rubbish in the streets. If they cannot renew that particular contract, then you're going to have heaps and heaps of rubbish in the streets. And that report couldn't even go to council. But in terms of the services, this municipality, Sally, did not spend 740 million rand in conditional grants, which had been granted by the National Treasury to do two things. One, to create job opportunities in Joburg, but secondly, to expand the Rea Vaya bus rapid transport system. They did not spend it. As a result, the Treasury took it back and said, you did not spend it. They requested the National Treasury to roll it over into this current financial year. The National Treasury said, you don't have a municipal manager, you don't have a CFO. And the reason why there's no municipal manager is because the politicians failed to appoint a municipal manager. So it's a mess. Ultimately, if this is not resolved, the residents will feel the pinch. But let's listen to the views of the residents of Johannesburg.
I think it's power mongering, which is very unfortunate, because when it comes to local government, it should all be about service delivery. I don't think politicians should be using this to try and accept power from one another, because it compromises citizens. We don't even know what this is about, because elections were run, they decided to go in coalition, so they must wait for the next round of local government elections if they want to really be in power. For now, the arrangement that they've agreed upon should stand. They should make sure that they deliver services.
Like, I've wasted my vote voting for them because they are not helping. I voted expecting them to work for us, but they are not doing that.
All of them fight for power. At the end of the day, they get power, they abuse it. And they abuse it because nothing gets done. They keep promises and make promises for people to join the party, then once you join, you vote for the party. At the end of the day, we don't get the services.
Yeah, there's the perception I wasted my vote. So the political mess could lead quite literally to a mess on the streets if those contracts don't get renewed because of this impasse. Thank you so much for breaking it all down for us, what's happening in the city of Johannesburg. That was our reporter, Moloko Moloto.